I'm gonna go by the laptop in front of me and the clock on the wall, 7 PM. If we could call this regular city council meeting for Monday, May 8th, 2023 to order, and if we could stand for the pledges for allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Lanyon.
Present.
Pratt. Jenkins.
Here.
Van Osper.
Here.
Rhines. Gilroy.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
I did receive a direct message from Councilman Pratt that he is ill and under the weather and would not be here this evening, so I am looking for a motion to excuse his absence. Thank you so much for your support.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. And I'm now looking for approval of the agenda as submitted, which it's a lengthy agenda, if there's no changes to be made.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Thank you so much. Do I have support?
Support.
Thank you so much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have an opportunity for audience participation with a maximum of 5 minutes per presentation. If there's someone in the audience that would like to come forward. All right. Moving forward, we have our council meeting minutes for April 24th of 2023. I'm looking for a motion to approve unless there were changes that need to be made and noted.
Move to approve the council minutes. 24.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Brandon, you had an opportunity to review accounts payable for this evening.
I did. First, I would like to thank Councilman Hayes for covering me last week when I could not be there. I heard you did a phenomenal job.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. I did have a chance to review the accounts payable. Again, we had another short week now that we're done with most of the taxes being sent out. I didn't have any questions. It all looked good. So with that, I would like to make a motion to approve checks 76702 through 76716 and ACH 424 through 425 for a total of $89,000, $667.89.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Did anybody have any questions regarding accounts payable? Any discussion? I did reach out to John. I was very curious about the Maury's board at the very top, but he was able to answer that for me. We had a DPW vehicle that needed to have some transmission work.
Fiesta for the fleet. It's gonna be
Yeah.
awesome.
Right.
No, it's a transmission repair.
Transmission repair, but, spending that amount of money rather than going out and purchasing a brand new 250 or 350, this is much more economical and efficient, so thank you so much for the answer. With that, I'm looking for support for Brandon's motion.
Second.
Thank you. Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Van Osper.
Yes.
Rhines.
Yes.
Gilroy.
Yes.
Lanyon.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Jenkins.
Yes.
Great. Moving along, we've got several action items for this evening, and I know that some of them are going to take some length, so I do want to be very timely this evening. The first is going to be the 2023 Pazer pavement ratings contract, and Scott did provide a memo, so I will go ahead and turn this over to our city engineer, Scott DeVries.
All right, so Pazer ratings is what we use to keep track of the road conditions throughout the city, all of the roads that we're in charge of. There's been some issues. We had a wonderful service going for many years, and those gentlemen, when the whole COVID thing hit, they closed shop, so and you couldn't get anybody to do it during 2020. So in 2021, we found another company to do it. They really struggled with getting it done well and accurate for us. So we moved on to trying to get some help with our regional planning folks, and it never really amounted to a good job either. So we found yet another opportunity here, and we keep track of who other communities use, and another neighboring community is using Wade Trim here. So we've presented to you a proposal to do the road ratings for this year. There's a database that's used from Michigan Tech that the state of Michigan, MDOT, requires us to enter it all through that database, and they will download our information and then upload it back to us when they're complete.
All right, great, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Scott? And thank you so much for giving the explanation that you know, COVID affected a lot of different things, so the fact that you were able to find somebody in other communities, I'm sure you probably got good references. I appreciate that effort and that work. Any questions for Scott? If not, I'm looking for that motion.
I would move that we approve the professional services agreement for roadway passer rating collection program.
You have to read
For the whole thing?
Yes, please. Yeah, you're new, man.
Fooled you.
I move that we approve the professional services agreement for roadway passer rating data collection and reporting from Wade Trim of Grand Rapids, Michigan, for the lump sum amount of $3,455.
Perfect, thank you so much. Do I have support?
Second.
All right, thank you. If there's no further discussion, Holly, will you call the roll on that action item?
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Lanyon,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
Van Osberg,
Yes.
Excellent. Now moving on, it is election inspection wages, and so I'm gonna turn this over to Holly. The next one will also be Holly's, the election tabulator purchase, but let's start with the election wages.
Okay, so we haven't had an increase in quite some time, 4 years now. And I feel like with the wage increases all around and with the pressure and stress that these guys have to go through now and all of the training that is required, I feel they're very deserving of a raise. And we also want to be able to entice people to work those 9 extra days because that is a big commitment for them to do. It's a good time to do this because I can kind of put it out there and try to get people pre-signed up.
Right.
If we can kind of entice them a little bit with some better wages.
Holly, is this comparable to other municipalities and what
Yep.
they're paying? Are we in line with this
Yes.
now? So
Yep.
we'll be competitive?
A lot of them were increasing theirs to around this same amount. So that's why we.
So if we had 10 people before working for 2 days, for maybe 8 hours or 10 hours or whatever, and now we're gonna have fewer people, but more days. So I guess our budget is gonna have to go up, is that,
Yes, the budget will go
what's the
up.
percentage is gonna go up to sort of a general bone?
Yep.
How much is it, you know?
I did put it in the next fiscal year budget at this rate, so
But
if it's approved, then.
yeah, and it'll be a
Already
significant
factored in.
increase. And the one thing that we have to remember too is that we have our general election cycle. So that's, primary, November. If there's no elections that next year, then, we're okay. I believe we also provide our electors for school elections, Holly? Do they contract through us or do they do their own?
They actually have, I think, consolidated to November.
Okay.
So
So-
we haven't had a big election in a really, really long time.
So we're looking at 2 elections every other year, correct?
Next year will be 3.
3 because of
There's
presidential.
a first presidential primary in
Yes.
February, and that's
Yeah.
kind of why we're doing this all now.
So you've budgeted for 3 elections then for next,
So this next fiscal year will only cover the February. By the time we get to the August and November, it'll be the
the
next.
following year? Okay,
Budget
great.
year,
I was
so
gonna ask that.
This is
Dan?
only gonna be for this one.
We discussed this quite a bit at
Yes.
our council goal
Yes,
setting
we
a
did.
couple months ago. I think while, it is going to be an increase in the overall elections budget, I'm not sure we really have a choice, because as Holly discussed at that meeting, she's been running out of folks from our local municipality that want to do this and having to pull from off of the state's list to get electors and different, and with the state law changes where these people are having more and more and more responsibilities put on them, if we keep our wages the same or do a smaller increase,
Yeah,
those better caliber people are just gonna go somewhere else, and
Yeah.
we're gonna be left with what's left. And when it comes to an election, I don't know that we want what's left.
I do think we have to do this, I'm just looking for a number, if it's now
Oh,
$100,000 that we spend, it's gonna be 250 or it's gonna be
Terry,
300?
I think John's gonna have an answer for
Yeah,
you, so.
Thank you,
Got it.
members of
Yes.
council,
Yes.
Gilroy. So, the scope, obviously it's more money, but we're talking, thousands of dollars, not tens of thousands of
Right.
dollars. Because you figure, even if we had, 100 hours of staff time for this at $20 an hour, that's $2,000, right? So you multiply that by 3 elections, it's $6,000. So it's gonna go up, but we just don't, they only work, less than 50 to 60 hours, an entire year,
Right.
fiscal year.
So
So,
we're not paying insurance.
correct, yeah.
Right.
So on a percent basis, no question, it's, 200% increase, but it's, part of part of what's driving that is the additional 9 days of time that we have to have qualified people to work.
Right.
If we used to have 3 days, but now we're gonna have 30 days, it sounds like it's a huge bump.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree we have to do it, I'm just wondering what are the numbers in it? It doesn't sound, it sounds like it's tens of thousands, right?
No,
No.
No.
Okay, good.
and
There's-
more than likely, John could get that to you offline as
Yep.
well, but I'm confident in what he just said, that we're not looking at tens of thousands. Holly, thank you so much. Yes, go ahead, Steve.
The history of those that we have, are we losing individuals, not getting them back?
A lot of the problem is gonna be, a lot of those people already have jobs. And so they were taking a day off to work the election day and to do the training. So we're gonna really have to put out there that, hey, can you take a couple extra days off? Maybe, work a few
It's gonna
other
be,
days.
it's gonna be a 9-day
So it's-
election cycle, and
it's-
that's where this is coming from.
It's gonna
We
be
have to be
odd.
able to cover 9 full days now. and
Plus
have-
election day.
Plus election day, and that means staff here and staff at, our precinct polling location.
Correct.
So whereas we used to have to get them to take 1 day off of work, we're now asking for basically 2 full weeks. Oh,
And some of them,
And we're probably gonna have to have all different people and juggle
Right.
around.
Yep.
right.
We are required by law to have at least 3 election inspectors working the precinct. So those 9 days will at least have 3 inspectors every day.
Alright. If there's no other questions, I'm looking for the requested action that Holly has included.
Make a motion to approve a rate increase for election inspectors at $18 an hour and election inspector chairs at $20 per hour.
Thank you
Second.
so much, thank you. If there's no further discussion, Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Kilroy,
Yes.
Lanyon,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
Van Osberg,
Yes.
Rhines.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. The next one is Holly's as well. This is the election tabulator. This was covered also in our goal setting visioning session, that because we have to do this long period of time for voting, now this requires us to have a new precinct, which we didn't have. And so, Holly, go ahead and fill us in on that.
So we are anticipating that we're gonna need this extra tabulator, not only for that purpose, but we may actually have to split our precincts again. So either way, we're gonna at least need one more tabulator, and I wanna kinda get on the ball with that as quickly as possible before there is a rush on them.
Sure.
Once legislation really starts coming down from the state, I expect there is gonna be a lot of need for tabulators, and I want Williams to be the first on the list.
Sure,
For that.
absolutely. And
So
Holly
the
is,
second they're certified by, the state and the board of canvassers, I wanna have our purchase ready to go, so that we're.
and how long is this price good for? Let's say
He
legislation
said-
drags their feet.
As long as.
Okay, and then
It's
what's
certified.
what's the lead time, once you're able to, call in your order, what's your lead time on
I
that?
do not know that.
Okay. Okay.
But it didn't. He
So time
knows
is-
we need it this year.
Time is of
Put
the
it out
essence,
there.
so, all right, any
We've
questions
been in communication very.
regarding this? All right, I'm looking for Holly's requested action, please.
I move to approve the quote from Election Source, the amount of not to exceed $6,603 as presented, the new precinct election tabulator.
Thank you so much, do I have support?
Second.
Thank you both, I appreciate that. Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Lanyon,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
Van Osberg,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy.
Yes. All right, great. Our last action item is the Ingham County Pavement Marking Program, and we have a letter from Ingham County to our city manager, John Hannafin. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this over to him. We assume this is for several different locations in the city that they provide that.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor
Service.
Gilroy, members of council. So, simply tonight, we're just gonna ask council to adopt a motion to approve the city to participate, in this program with the county. We did this, last year, it went really well, we got a great price. And this is for, yellow and white striping, both colors, that's exciting. There's about 32,000 linear feet that will be on Lynn Road from the west city limits to the east city limits, Church Rowley from the west city limits to Putnam, And then Williamston Road, I-96, the county had said to the north city limit, but that'll stop right about Middle Street. So, again, all we're asking for tonight is a simple approval to participate in the program, and then there is a contract that will be forthcoming with the county. That will be at a later date.
Great, thank you so much. Any questions for John regarding this? It seems like it's pretty cut and dry. If there's no discussion, I'm looking for that motion.
I'll make a motion that the city of Williamston participate in the Ingham County Road Striping Program.
All right, great, thank you so much. Do I have support?
Second.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Hanson,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
Van Osberg,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Lanyon.
Yes.
All right, that concludes our action items for this evening, and we're gonna jump right into our discussion items. We have 3 on our agenda. The first is the 2023-2024 fiscal year budget work session. Terry, can you pass those out, please? Thank you. All right, I'll turn it over to our city manager, John Hannafin, at this time.
All right, thank you, everyone. We've been making our way to this point in the budget preparation year. We did have our visioning session in February to discuss some of our major priorities, and we obviously try to incorporate those whenever we can into the budget theme. So, Holly, if you want to hit the next slide. So we're going to go over, obviously, the highlights of all the major funds. We're going to talk about our budgetary themes, some trends with property taxes, any personnel or operational highlights, and then our capital equipment highlights. Next slide, please. So pretty much services and operations will be largely the same as prior year. The one big exception is the additional wages for election inspectors, which we just approved, and those will be effective in the coming fiscal year. We're going to continue to replace equipment when necessary. We're going to continue to invest in our supply and our equipment for our water and wastewater plants. We're going to have 3 very large impactful projects for North Putnam, Williams, and Lloyd, and all those will include water, sewer, and street repair. We're going to have the road dive implementation, which could start possibly at the end of this fiscal year, but more likely than not, we'll finish the beginning of the next fiscal year. We're going to talk about our master plan update, and we're going to do our master plan update, and then we're also going to have a website overhaul. So those are some of the major budget items. So I'll turn things over to our treasurer, Mr. Mead. He'll talk a little bit about property taxes.
Thank you, city manager, and thank you, mayor and council. Just quickly, I know we got a lot to cover. In regards to property taxes, things are looking, I guess, sustaining pretty well, I guess, in property tax. Williamston seems to be doing well as far as retaining value, drawing people in, what's keeping the house prices up, or price of houses up. In 2021, 2022, and then going to 2022, 2023, we had about a 3.85% increase in taxable value. Conservatively, when we put this together, we use a 2.5% increase to go from 22, 23 up to 23, 24. So, like I said, that was very conservative compared to the prior year. And then since we had put our numbers together, the assessor has finished their March board review, and it sounds like those numbers are gonna be closer to probably 6 to 6.5% increase. So obviously, the revenues from property taxes are gonna be very good in terms of general fund. We haven't quite gotten into any calculations yet on if we may have some headly rollback or anything from that. But that aside, like I said, we're gonna see a steady trend in property taxes, which will definitely help general fund. And of course, the other major contributor to general fund is our revenue sharing, and as the state has kept that going positive for us. And as of this moment, I talked with our assessor. He is not aware of any tax tribunal challenges or anything that could negatively impact So any questions on property tax?
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for?
Did I hear 6.1% increase?
Right now, the numbers are about 6.8
6.8, wow.
as far as taxable value.
I'm not an economist, not a tax man. What's your seat of the pants judgment on how much of that is from inflation and how much is from property improvement?
That's the key question right there. That's the figures we need to determine if there would be any impact from Headley. I've talked to the assessor Friday in hopes to get with him this week, if we can schedule time, because we've gotta get those numbers gathered and figured out, you know, if we are gonna have any change because, in the military, because we gotta get it ready for the public hearing. So I'm hoping to get that in the next couple of days from the assessor. But at this point, I do not.
Is there a method for looking at assessed values to figure out the difference between those two things?
On his system, yes, there should be. Ours is not so easy. When I say ours, the tax system is not so easy. On the assessing system, they maintain their database completely different, so he should be able to pull those numbers pretty easily.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Great question, thank you, Terry. Any other questions? Okay, we can keep going.
Yep, next slide. So again, personnel and operational highlights, with the exception of the election inspectors, we're gonna have the exact same level of staffing in the coming fiscal year. We are gonna continue to use contract, services for plan reviews. You know, I've been here about 15 months now, and the combination of, I guess, my experience of doing some of the more perfunctory things like fence permits and things like that, I'm certainly capable of doing that, and I just make time to do it. We have some, but it's not an overwhelming amount of workflow, not enough to justify changing staffing moving forward. And then when we do have any, you know, larger site plan reviews and things like that, it's likely we would always have some level of contract service for that. So, and that's reflected in the budget. One thing in the planning budget, you'll notice that the personnel costs are down about $5,000 a year, but the contract service is up, and that's a combination of contract service. It's also for the master plan update, and we have to budget for that, and we budget appropriately for that. As far as collective bargaining, we've talked in the visioning session about ways to enhance, you know, the benefits or salary package for police, and I've had preliminary discussions with the union, and we'll be bringing something to city council in the next couple of weeks, with the idea that, you know, any of those enhancements, if approved by council, those would be effective July 1. So, working in very good faith with Don Smith over there. He's the union steward. Public Works, their agreement does expire this year, so negotiations will begin on that late summer, early fall. You know, again, I think I told you when I interviewed, this is, I guess, one of the areas of expertise that I've had. I've probably done about 25 or 30 union contracts, both police and Teamsters and ASME and all the typical unions. So I expect that to be a good partnership, and really don't expect any kind of adversarial relations as far as that goes. Tom, do you want to talk, or Mr. Mead, do you want to talk a little bit about the health insurance?
Sure. So I talked with our liaison, I guess, our health insurance liaison, a couple weeks ago. Obviously, she said it's too early to tell exactly what the increase will be. I mean, obviously, they anticipate an increase for 23-24. She said it's a little too early to tell what that amount would be. We conservatively use 10%, which is about what it had been last year, and looking back historically, that's probably a high side of a realistic number for I mean, there's been years where insurance has increased less than that.
Right.
But again, trying to be conservative, we use 10. She did say that the last quarter of the current cycle, because it ends on June 30th, that's our policy, we have to renew July 1 through June 30th. And on the last quarter, she said it is about a 7% increase right now is what they're thinking. But again, conservatively, we use 10% in the budget. And again, as it points out up there, One thing that makes it very hard to budget is if you're hiring new employees and have no idea whether they're gonna take single, two people or family, and there is a huge, huge difference on health insurance premiums for someone who, just has themselves to insure, or if they have a family. Very big difference, so that makes it pretty hard to budget. Again, that's why we try to be conservative going with the higher number on the overall cost, because you don't know when you get new employees where they're gonna come in at with their premiums, so.
Okay, thank you.
And then as we move forward in time, and I have a meeting tomorrow afternoon with a different insurance agent, just to test the waters and see what they have to say, and that's kind of the, it's the scenario that we're in. I mean, you don't want to jump from carrier to carrier, provider to provider, but you do have to actively engage the, not only your existing agent, but sometimes outside services. And we talked about that as well at the visioning session about all of our service providers, is making sure that we're continuing to get the best price. Next slide, please.
Thank you.
The good news for us, we're in very good shape with our MERS pension liability, as well as with our retiree healthcare, which is commonly called OPEB, which is other post-employee benefits. So we just have one retiree currently on the OPEB plan. And to give you an idea of scope, I mean, communities all across probably the whole country, but in particular, the ones I know about are Michigan, they have millions of dollars of liability. And we don't have that, and that can really be, on a long enough event horizon, it's really impactful on your bond rating if you're borrowing funds. It's now the accounting standards have changed over time, so you're now required to reflect those, so it gauges the overall health of your community. So, and this is a case, not a case of being lucky. This is a case of being good and being managing resources over time. We have benefits, we do provide those, but we just don't have that OPEB drain that other communities do, and that's huge for us moving forward. Next slide. So a little bit about some of our investments. We are budgeting about 20 grand for website improvements. We think that will cover most of it, or if not all of it. We are moving towards BSNA cloud conversion, and I'll come back to that and let Tom explain that a little bit. And then we do have another need to buy another police computer server for about $5 grand. So, Mr. Mead, you want to talk just briefly about the cloud conversion and the concept there?
Yes, this is a subject that we could probably easily devote a whole discussion on, but it kind of all boils down to the ransomware attacks that are just out of control now. And if you, real quickly, I tried to pick some controversial things or some things that are in the, going on in municipalities. I mean, you talk about potholes, you Google that, there's like 2.6 million hits. Police brutality, there's like 9.4 million hits. Then you put in ransomware attacks on healthcare, education, and municipal government, 72 million hits. This is a big thing. I just got a thing from MML, they just had a training on it for local governments because governments are being targeted. In fact, they're saying, out of Forbes, they're saying that 44% of global ransomware attacks in 2020 were targeted towards municipalities. In March of 23, they're saying, ransomware, cybersecurity attacks had grown at an unprecedented number. In March of 23, there were already 459 attacks in 1 month. I mean, it's just, you Google it and it's everywhere out there. I can go on and on. But so bottom line is, the way this would work is all of our data right now is on our servers here in the building. Like any municipality, of course, there's bigger, Oakland County is a lot bigger than us, so they have a lot bigger IT department, but even so, as everybody knows, these people that do the ransomware attacks, it's a game to them, and they're just constantly, even if, the Barracuda or any of these real sharp businesses come up with ways to try to stop them, they're constantly just finding ways to get into your data. And with smaller municipalities, it's even harder for us to stay up to speed, trying to, you know, we have IT Right, they're great, they serve most of the communities in the state. But I mean, we don't have millions and millions of dollars like, these, you know, these really big places that are trying to keep, well, I don't even know if that matters honestly, because you go through the list of who's getting hit, and I mean, it's big companies, small companies, it's everybody, but the bottom line is, this would take a lot of the liability off the city. BSNA has come out with a program where we can put all our data on a cloud, and that cost of securing, making that very secure is shared by all users, so there's municipalities in not only Michigan, but other states as well that are using it. So they have staff that is dedicated to doing nothing but protecting that data. Should it be breached, which seems very unlikely, I mean, they almost say it's impossible because of the way the user interface would be, you know, you wouldn't have third-party people on there all the time, it's just, you know, us as users going to that data. But should it be breached, there would not be a liability back to the city. And when these ransomware places hit, I mean, they're charging, I think they said the estimated cost to get your data back, according to the Forbes article, was like 800 and, what did they say, 835,758 has been the average cost paid in to get your data back. So, and it's hitting close to home. I mean, we saw it in Jackson County ISD, we saw it in, I just read, Wayne County had it in part of their police department. There were some other local schools. I mean, it's just a really big thing right now, and we see this as an opportunity to shift that burden or that fear, I guess, of getting hacked over to someone that could oversee that data and have a lot more knowledge and put a lot more money towards protecting it than us. And I mean, I guess years ago, you know, a lot of city data was public knowledge, but unfortunately with technology, we have to gather data from citizens, you know, if they're doing ACH payments or credit card payments, a lot of stuff that now is confidential, and it's a lot of risk to us. Should that data, even if it isn't sold, I mean, even if it's hacked and then, you know, that data is compromised from the citizens, I mean, we still would then have an obligation to try to help them resolve and get their finances straightened out and stuff. So the whole goal of this, I guess, if I've explained it well enough, is to shift our database of all our financials from our server and put it out on the cloud through this new product that BSNA has. And in doing that, we've been talking with other departments. I know I've talked with Kara in GIS, or Scott's department with their GIS, and the chief. I mean, a lot of this stuff can be worked on the cloud now, which would give employees access to it anyway. I mean, Scott could have people out in their pickup truck with a laptop or something, if they're trying to find a shut-off or something, you know, they could have access right down in there to GIS or, you know, to that cloud. I mean, so we're trying to, it's a convenience, but more than anything, we're just trying to limit our liability on the fear from all this ransomware attacks that's been going on. I don't know if I can explain it real well or not, but.
I think you did. I think my only question was, and you just hit it at the end, this is gonna be coverage for the entire city, all of the municipalities, Scott, for DPW, wastewater treatment, as well as our, police department.
The product that we're looking at with BSNA would be all financial, but I think, like, my understanding, the chief can speak to, I think a lot of the stuff, the data they use, of course, is on a state database.
I just wanna make sure.
We've been migrating the GIS to the cloud already.
Okay, all right.
So that's kind of our goal, is to get to a point where, I mean, one thing we're seeing with IT Right, with other municipalities around the state too, is because of this risk, their costs, or what they're charging municipalities to keep that data safe for each individual municipality is they're really ratcheting up the cost that they're charging. I know I can't speak here in Williamston, I haven't been here long enough, but I know in Albion, we were paying about 13,000 for several years, and then they came in and said, we can't do it for that anymore, they doubled it to 26,000, and that's a big hit on your general fund, and that's just to try to keep data secure.
I don't understand, is this a one-time payment, is it an annual payment, or what?
This is going to be, so the conversion to the product, is quite timely. They said it's probably gonna be, give or take, 18-month process. They would bill us half roughly in the first initial, like when you sign the agreement to do it, and then the other half when it was all completed, which is good for us because that'll get split out over 2 budget years. So in reality, you know, we'd be coming back to, this is for the first stage of it. We would be coming back next year for the second stage.
So this is a one-time fee, is there an annual fee associated with it as well?
There will be, but right now we pay annual.
Tom, you're redefining what brief means, so I'm gonna take the mic back from you.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, thank you,
We gotta
John.
move on. Great questions. So this is the first installment. We have an annual fee with IT Right anyway, because they're our IT company. What this does, it allows us, we'll be less dependent upon in-house server and then the support that goes with that. And so our data, financial data, will be on the cloud. We'll be able to access it from anywhere, but it'll be far more security than we can possibly provide with our gaming resources.
So what I'm hearing is that BSA and IT Right are gonna kind of offset each other, then we're gonna, is that what I'm hearing, or?
BSNA is the software package, and IT Right is the company that provides support for that.
Okay.
So, but there's definitely, it's a significant expense in the next
Right.
2 budgets, but
Right.
it's well worth it.
And then we won't have a maintenance towards BSA, it's going to be IT Right that maintains that for us.
We won't have as much.
Okay, that's I
It'll
think
be-
what we were
and
trying to
it won't
get
be-
to.
Correct, and it won't be anywhere near the 26,000.
Thank you, Dan, and then I'm gonna call on Brandon.
So it sounds like the chances of us getting a ransomware attack moving to the cloud are very slim, but if that were to occur, the liability's not on us, but it's on who? Is that BSNA, is that IT Right, who's the?
It's gonna be on the company that they are using to store this data.
Okay, John.
Thank you. The other advantage you get to is like the worst case scenarios, for disaster recovery is you have, the previous day's data.
Right, you
So
have
the
your
worst
backup.
is you lose like 1 day.
Sure.
of data.
Brandon, go ahead.
Nope, Dan, that's my
Okay,
question.
all right, excellent. Okay, Tom, thank you so much, I appreciate it, this is very important, we need to make sure that we protect everybody's information, so I appreciate that. John, I'm gonna go back to you.
Sure. We're still patiently waiting for our police vehicle to come in. So hopefully that's now in the cloud somewhere. So this is the same one. And we're not paying for it twice. So we're just waiting for that to come in. And we continue to make.
How many vehicles will we have in total?
Chief, do you wanna?
We have 4, and this is gonna be an additional one. We'll keep the old one for the reserves. They use that a lot in the SRO program. But what are you saying? This is supposed to be delivered last fall. I'll be happy if it gets here next fall.
Yeah,
So-
all right, keep us up to date on
No,
that,
we're doing good vehicle wise, so
All
this
right.
is helping.
thank you.
Next slide. So, we talked about this in the overview, we're gonna hear about Putnam and Williams and Lloyd here, later on in the agenda tonight, but, we started some work on Putnam, we've had some bid issues, so we're gonna have to regroup a little bit, but we're still committed to doing the project, obviously, and then Williams and Lloyd are funded with the, allocation that we receive through, the federal government. And then Memorial Park and Trail, we've talked about that, that's a grant-funded project, and so we're gonna pursue Ingham County and trust fund grants for that project, and if successful, then there's a possibility that project could break ground next spring. So,
Great.
there's that. General fund, just a dollar sign there, so we expect to end 23-24 with about 1.8 million in general fund balance. Did put the asterisks, this does include a major contribution to North Putnam to make that project happen. That does leave us with an unassigned fund balance about 80%, which is fantastic. I mean, generally accepted accounting practices is typically, 25 to 30%. Our fund balance policy requires 30%. So we're certainly within the, well above that range.
It's 1.8 million after the contribution?
Yes.
Correct, that's
Yes.
correct, yeah. And so, and we've talked about that some of these long-standing projects that we need to consider transferring some of that fund balance and use that for infrastructure and then also for additional sidewalk replacement. And those are reflected in the budget. Obviously, the big one is that large contribution.
Great, thank you.
I'll pause for a sec if anybody has any questions with those.
I think
I
we're,
wanted to ask a
oh,
question
go
from
right ahead,
earlier.
Scott. Yeah.
I was wondering if the DPW and the police have separate unions, or is it the
Yes.
same?
They do have separate
So
uses.
I'm assuming they keep track of each other in terms of how each is doing.
I'm sure they would, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a fair question, and I guess on that point is, we try and bring as much equity across all employee groups, non-union and in both unions.
Right.
And
I
we
mean, we,
try not to have two divergent benefit packages for
Okay.
across all.
because we've had discussions before that we need to enhance our police,
Mhm.
and I was thinking if that's gonna happen, then the others are gonna be watching the situation.
Great
Thank
question,
you.
Scott, thank you. All right.
Next slide. So our major and local street funds, in major, it's close to breaking even every year. Says no major road work included in the base expenditures. After the funds are collected and we pay for all the maintenance activities, winter maintenance, snow removal, things like that, we have about $100,000 available to contribute to projects, which we will do that. That will likely go towards North Putnam, and then we do have the road diet that will be completed as part of major streets. And local streets, just doesn't generate a lot of income, and so we do have a general fund subsidy, about 60 grand, and that helps with the maintenance activities there. Nothing really, no, that's fine, nothing unusual or remarkable to sign off for that. Sewer fund, so we did have our rate discussion at the last meeting. I thought it was a great discussion. I met with a handful of you individually, and thank you for your comments and the time. So what we've been able to really dive down to for sewer is to assume a rate increase of only 5%. And I know that's more than years past. This is the first time in 8 years that we've asked for a sewer fund increase. Without a rate increase, that fund will continue to have an ongoing structural deficit. The income is intersecting the expenditures right now. Primarily, it's because of the debt service that we have, and our use and number of users is somewhat plateaued. So we do have plant improvements necessary in the immediate future, and in plant terms, that's in the next 3 to 5 years. And we're assuming a couple new residential sewer connections because we really try and be conservative on that front. Really, the only consistent residential development is at Nottingham Forest in that development, and they continue to pull permits and continue to slowly move forward. So next slide, please. So that's a big red no to the rate study recommendations. They're valid, the numbers make sense, they hold true, but that's the assumption model of 2 different scenarios from Baker Tilly trying to march towards that almost 50% increase over 5 years. And in the first year, it was about a 19% increase, and then about a 10% increase in the next year. And then the line below, that was a 25% increase in 1 year. And as we've talked at length, that's just not a sustainable thing or fair to our customer base. So what we're recommending is a 5% increase. And so what that would punch out to for a user who uses about, typical user, family uses about 4,500 gallons a month, that'd be about $2.55 per month in additional. This does not include, and again, Councilmember Hanson said this, as a number of you did as well, about really trying to balancing it out and charging that to the commodity charge rather than the ready to serve, and so that's what we're asking for. So there wouldn't be a ready to serve charge proposed for this coming fiscal year.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
And what's the total amount that a 5% increase would, generate?
So it's gonna generate about $30,000 in additional revenue. Because we have about $600,000 in commodity usage.
And I'll ask the same question when we get to the water.
Yeah, that's easier,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
water.
Scott, go ahead.
I'm a little concerned about the
difference between what they're recommending and what we're going for?
Sure.
So are we going for this like a little bit at a time over the years to get to where they're saying we should go? Or are we just getting bad information from them, or what?
No, and thank you, through the
Yes,
chair.
yes.
So again, Baker Tilly is a, very well-respected company, and they do these models all over the place. Tom Traciak, who used to probably present here many years ago, is, one of the gurus of this. They look at it somewhat independently of your community's ability to pay. This is just a simple, like, straight line projection of the quickest way
To get
to get to a debt service payment
Yep.
5 years from now. And so, so the information they presented is good, but as you know, it's not practical for us. So, what would be really impractical for us, though, is to forestall another rate increase, in particular in wastewater. And, I use the example, so if we had a 1.5% increase over the last 8 or 9 years in wastewater, we'd probably be looking at about the same amount for the coming years. The other thing this allows us to do as we move towards that project that we're gonna have to do at some point, we do have, if we were a community that was completely built out, like completely, we'd be somewhat of in a pickle, because then you're relying on redevelopment, and then you're really not getting a net gain in number of customers, number of users, or commodity usage. But we do have, some pretty large areas in the industrial park that could be filled, and all it takes is one, semi-large user to really, change that model of how we get to 50% more. There's some other things we can do as we move through time, and that's, frankly, it's just good management, and much like using some of the general fund, we can't do it to completely offset all of the wastewater needs, but we can do some of that as we move through time. So, but the information they provided is good, but it's just, it's beyond what I would think is affordable for the community.
Yes, go ahead.
So kind of on the same path, but for you and Scott, so I know we had talked about the necessary projects coming up. Is this going to be sufficient to keep us afloat? I mean, because this is obviously a lot smaller than what they had recommended. So is this going to be, even at 30 grand, is that going to be enough for us to keep afloat, or is there going to be a big project that we need to kind of backfill?
Through the chair. So a couple things. We do have what's called the RRNI account, and that's available to use for infrastructure projects if necessary. We also have some unrestricted cash assets in both water and wastewater that we're going to use for the coming road projects that we have. Not for water, but in particular for wastewater, because we have the cash on hand, because we have saved some money over time. We're just at the point now with the increase in our bond payments and the inflationary costs for chemicals and things like that. 30 grand extra will get us above the annual operating break even, but we're gonna be right back here next year asking for the same thing. But again, a lot can change in 12 months. We could have a development of some size come on board, and that helps keep the rate increase at a manageable level.
Right.
Thank you.
Dan?
The way I've kind of been thinking about some of this is because we're looking at this with the goal, we know we need improvements and upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant, right? And we have the ability to use some money from the general fund for doing that, but when we do that, we have water and sewer users who don't live in the city, who their tax dollars don't contribute to the general fund. We obviously can't go with these higher rates that were recommended by Baker Tilly, but when we go with a smaller rate increase like this, we're at least affecting all of our users the same. That's what I've been thinking.
John? Go ahead.
So that's all I have for this slide. So next slide. Page down.
It went into hibernation.
Is this one of those
well-
ransomware things?
We get hit already.
I think that was randomware. So, we talked Mechanic Street and Zimmer. Our city engineer is going to give us an update about that. Those are going to be bid out here shortly. So those are pretty large dollar amount projects. Those are in the current budget model. And then we continue to have all of our operational costs at the plants. You know, as when I met with Councilmember Hanson, he affectionately called it participating in the, you know, inflationary economy, which is a short term for prices are going up. So, but that's where we're at with some of the things that are, you know, somewhat beyond our control. Next slide. And so again, we talked about, we do have bond covenants with the USDA for repair, replacement, and infrastructure. So we either have to set aside this amount or designate those expenses from the RR&I balance. So we project the RR&I balance to be about $712,000 by the end of 22-23. And we can draw from that to do projects, and that's what's illustrated there, Zimmer and Mechanic, and then the North Putnam Street sewer replacement. So that's gonna take that down significantly, but, you know, as long as we continue to make our $79,000 in change contribution every year, we'll be in good shape. Our city treasurer did interact with USDA just to make sure we're on the same page with that.
The lift station things is 300,000 total,
Correct.
150 each. Okay.
Actually, Zimmer is significantly more. Mechanic just isn't. Is that
But the
correct?
total project is.
Total project's about
327.
327, yes.
Is it a signed contract amount or is it a projected amount?
It's the engineer's estimate.
We'll know more soon.
Thank you.
Next slide. So water, we're assuming a 1% rate increase. Again, we're rated kind of that tipping point where operational income is just meeting expenditures. Next slide. So the model here wasn't as drastic because we don't have long-term plant projects, which are, you know, the several $million type. But we do have a transmission system that is old, and we're gonna be able to address a lot of the key points in the coming 3 years with the, with Representative Slotkin, you know, finding the $3 million allocation for us. So, with the 1% increase, it does get us back on track with, you know, a modest increase that generates probably about $10,000 additional annually. But again, we're in good shape, especially with that $3 million bump that we got. And we'll continue, and that's, you know, I hope that's not a once in a community or once in a career or once in a lifetime allocation. We'll continue to look at money. I mean, you know, the fortunate part about being in a district that's gonna have probably a hotly contested Senate race is that hopefully the money's flying again. So we'll try and grab some of it. It's like being in one of those cash grab things. So, so we're really able to we'll be able to make a lot of progress with our water transmission system. Next slide.
Thank you.
Yeah. So again, we're gonna continue to replace meters. We're gonna continue to do lead and copper investigations. Our chemical costs are up. We do have, you know, our ongoing repair and maintenance. Next slide. But then we do have, the RR&I is smaller here, because it just is. The USDA debt obligation isn't as large as the sewer fund. So we project to have about a $256,000 balance, but we did receive state and local, that's the ARPA money, fiscal recovery funds. We have those in hand, which we'll use for projects. Next slide. And then also we did have a $3 million allocation. So we have pretty significant projects. And the William Street water main, that's the entire project. It's not just the water side. Same with Lloyd, and then North Putnam. If necessary, we can use some of the funds from that allocation for this, because that North Putnam was on the original project listing. We don't want to do that if we can avoid it, because we have other projects planned in the coming years. But in the event that we do, we'll certainly bring that to council, and then we'll just have to shuffle the deck a little bit in the coming years. Because we had a couple different work sessions on this previously.
John, can you kind of explain why, was there a delay in us receiving the award? Did we have to provide all of our bids and everything? Because I'm seeing there that award, we won't receive those funds till fall of this year.
Yeah, it's
Should
just,
we have to like pay upfront and then we're gonna supplement, you know, we're
That's
gonna pay
correct.
ourselves back with
yeah,
that?
yeah, there's
Okay.
still a couple of environmental review steps that we have to finalize, and then there's a grant agreement that we're certainly, we've met all of our obligations to this date, but when we start getting to the point of actually doing projects, yeah, we pay for them up front and then we draw down the account. from the
Okay.
federal government.
Okay, all right, thank you for that.
And then we also, we do have to have them bid out before we can start drawing, obviously.
Okay.
Next slide. Anything on water? Sorry, I kind of went through that quickly, but we kind of had the same level of questions we did with wastewater.
Thank you.
So we'll just talk briefly about our component units. DDA, we've got some, annual maintenance stuff to do, benches, trash cans, etc. We do need to continue to seal coat our lots and restripe those when necessary. We did budget for enhanced marking this year, and this has been a topic of much delight. Budgeting for additional Christmas lights. And again, all those funds are generated in the DDA.
Yep.
TIFA 2B, it continues to collect funds. We're reevaluating projects for the future, and then the Ice House project is still moving forward, and we're hopeful that they'll make it to the June planning commission meeting for final site planning. So, and they would move forward with that project. So those are the component units. The EDC still has a board. There hasn't been any activity, and there isn't any for the coming fiscal year. It's probably still a good idea to keep it open for now, but that's something that maybe we'll reevaluate in our visioning session for next year. So, our next steps, certainly you've had the actual raw data for the budget for about a month now. If you have any questions, as we march towards the public hearings, plural, that's the public hearings on rates and any of our fees really, and then the budget, and then the idea is that the budget would be adopted on June 12th. And that's in line with our charter and in line with our fiscal year.
Thank you. Yes, Terry.
This is my first time around on the budget process like this. I haven't done this before. So what's the expected, what's the usual kind of deal? How many people show up at this public meeting?
You're looking at it
Yep.
right now. It's,
Is it a spreadsheet? We don't know? or-
we publicize it. The public is absolutely welcome to come to our work sessions. That just historically does not happen. I guess people are very comfortable with what we're doing,
Okay.
or they're, I don't know, I would invite our public to come. It's their money that we are discussing.
Yeah.
In essence, it's our money, and so, and I always invite, but again,
I
You're
get
looking-
next time we'll be lighting ordinance.
right. So you're looking at it. We will be at this table, we will have those discussions, and we'll keep moving forward.
All right.
Thank you, John.
Sure.
Appreciate it. I would say that, if you've got any in-depth questions, or you really want to have that detailed discussion with John or Tom, regarding this, please, reach out to them. I want to keep this moving, again, I want it to be timely, so, next discussion, and do we need the slides for this too, Scott? Are we gonna stay in the dark? Or are we
We're gonna stay in
go
the
through-
dark.
Okay, we're gonna go, okay. Our North Putnam Street project update, and it looks like council members, you received a packet in front of you at your laptop, but I have a feeling that Scott's gonna project for us.
There we go. All right, so there's 6 slides, including this one of the beautiful river. All right. We're gonna give you an update of the major projects that are going on, starting with what's happened with the North Putnam project, as rumors are flying around what happened and everything. The project bid through the MDOT bid process, and the estimate for the project, and this is based on MDOT's large database of recent projects, so it's not just numbers that are pulled out of thin air, it's comparable projects and such, was $2.108 million. And at the April 7 bid letting, we got one bid from one contractor for $3.5 million. $500,000 of that was just traffic control devices. So there was some really weird numbers in that one. Basically $1.4 million over what we had planned for the project. Well, obviously, we don't have $1.4 million to just throw in there. So we took a look at what the bid tabs were showing us. The underground prices were very much in line with what expectations were. Pretty much the entire excess amount was on the road building part of it. And there is a tremendous amount of highway work out there right now, and there's some very large regional mega projects going on, and that's definitely impacted the road construction market right now. So in order to keep moving forward, fortunately, we had the HUD project going on as well. So what we've decided to do after a really good brainstorming session with the city manager, myself, and some folks from Spicer, to take the utility portion, merge it in with the HUD project that we have for Williams and Lloyd, so that construction gets going this year on North Putnam. It is cheaper for us to invest a small amount of money into some thinner temporary pavement to get through the wintertime, and then to follow up with a road construction project in a different time frame for the spring. There are some obligations to do that because of the federal money that's in it. You have to spend at least a few dollars on the project before January 27th, because you have 1 year once they obligated the federal funds. So we'll talk about that in a little more depth. We did talk to our contractor friends that are out there that have worked with us in the past on infrastructure projects, and found that there are a few of them that have availability this summer. In fact, they were going to be looking for work. So it did seem to kind of line up the stars and the moon and so forth, as far as this being a smart move. The other thing that everybody's concerned about is the impact of shutting off the northern part of the town. With doing this, it does give us a little bit better ability to minimize downtime of the intersection of East Riverside and Putnam, which is the whole key to access across. It's not the bridge that we're impacting, it's that major intersection to the north where local traffic can get around and go around the other neighborhoods. So the utility project, basically the infrastructure project that we're pulling together for 23 and 24, would be later construction this year. We will not be impacting the close of school year like we were kind of telegraphing everybody this year. We will not be impacting Jubilee, because by the time you go through the advertising, the bids, the recommendations, the council award, you gotta go through all the contract work and insurance and all that. It's just not even possible to get started on construction until after Jubilee is over. Now, we'll kind of leave that up to what's best for the contractors, because obviously we'll want some good pricing on this, but we have to have the temporary pavement buttoned up in time for the freezing cold weather. So that's the North Putnam becomes the highest priority for that. Williams, we still believe that we can get the infrastructure in Williams Street and get a base course of paving in there to get through the winter, but we want to leave some availability for the contractor to finish up like the sidewalk work, and we're going to replace a few driveway aprons and things like that down through there. So we won't leave it a mess through the winter, but we have to give the contractor some available schedule.
Scott,
You have a question?
Yes. Are these projected end dates or projected start dates?
These are projected end dates.
End dates, okay, all right.
Yes.
Because I was like, wait a minute, we don't want to
Yeah,
start
yeah.
something in November and
No, no, no.
December because of winter, so
No,
these are projected end
when you
dates.
see a word that says substantial, that means substantial completion of those items that are in parentheses.
Thank you, I
And
appreciate that
substantial means
clarification.
it's ready to be used for the intended purpose.
Perfect, thank
Okay.
you. And I'm sure my community members out there appreciate
Very
that.
good
It's going
question.
to be finished, but not starting.
Sometimes I get lost in engineer world and
That's okay.
and we just assume you know all this stuff. No,
And
I'm
you know
glad
what, and
asked.
that's why I asked.
Yes. And then Lloyd Street, the contractor could get started on it, but we don't want to make the end dates until next year in the early part of construction season, just to provide the maximum flexibility for most contractors, so we get, the best bid results out of this.
Great.
We could have a contractor comes in and says, yeah, I can do Lloyd too, and I want to get going on it.
Sure.
That's fine, but as long as it's something that we can survive with over the winter time, so there'll be some negotiation on that.
Thank you so much, Scott.
And there'd be a follow-up project for Putnam Street, the road portion of the project to be completed in the spring. we'll let the contractor get going as soon as they possibly can. We do have to spend some item on the project before January 27th. So an easy thing is we'll have the stumps ground. That's our idea. Now, if the contractor's got something else, that's fine, we'll work with that. And we would project paving to be done in June at this point. This isn't completely finalized because we have to go to MDOT and finalize everything. It will go out in one of their normal scheduled bid lettings. The only window that makes sense is between July and October. I'm thinking it's probably gonna be closer to September, but it could be August. We don't wanna go any later than October. You wanna get, the best opportunity for next spring construction. On to the Grand River M43 road diet. Actually, after completion of this thing, I just received this afternoon, Spicer made the final comments that MDOT's provided. They've upgraded the documents with those, so even the documents that are in your packet have been upgraded a little bit more.
Great.
What that means, though, is that as far as we can understand from MDOT, we've kind of told them, this is your last, please last. And that's kind of what they've given us. They said, they gave us a checklist. Our next step is for us to put out for public comment. So John and I were speaking earlier, and we've thrown a couple dates out there. That might change, but those are tentative dates for either June 7th or the 21st.
Those are Wednesdays.
Those are Wednesdays for like a public open house type thing. And then bidding in July is what we anticipate. And, construction, this is, they go up and down through here, they grind off the old, they run down and paint new.
Right.
It's not major disruption, but it has to be coordinated and traffic control and that kind of thing. And then there are some signs and posts that have to go in for the MDOT work and a little bit for ours. As far as the public comment period goes, my biggest concern is really the impact of the first blocks north and south on Putnam Street, and working with the businesses in there for everybody to understand the reasons why and what has to happen there. So.
Well, I think you're doing a good job, so we appreciate it.
You could get some questions or concerns on Grand River itself, but in the little diagram there, what we've got right now is on the left. We've got 2 lanes in both directions, and very simply, you're going to get the one on the right, which is going to give you a center turn lane with 1 major lane north and south, and then a bike lane. And then it doesn't show parking, but in the downtown 2 blocks there would be parking.
Dan, you have a question for Scott?
So when it comes to public comment, the thing we're gonna get when it comes to Grand River, and we've discussed this quite a bit as a council, and I know it's been discussed with MDOT, but it's the thing that people are gonna bring up, is why are we taking away a lane, adding a turn lane, and we're not getting a turn arrow at the light? So that's what we're gonna have to, when it's public, that's gonna be the big discussion point when it comes to public comment.
Are we able to push MDOT for that left-hand turn lane light, John?
So, thank you, Mayor Gilroy, members of council. So, having dealt with this, similar conditions in different community, where the paint elements went in first,
Yeah.
and then they wanted to see what the actual traffic impacts were.
Okay.
And then ultimately, we were able to add a green turn arrow.
Okay.
So, we can push for that, but as
They'll do we can request a traffic study though,
They'll-
correct? So
their
that they can
traffic-
come and count?
their traffic modeling currently, you would say that it doesn't need one,
Right?
but that's something that we can certainly stress to them, up until the point that the paint's actually on the ground.
Okay. And I know it's a process, but I think
Yeah.
that's something we definitely should try
Yeah,
to
we can
heavily pursue.
Try as best we can to get them to think beyond the, just the, on paper engineering aspect
Right.
that, if it's 11, and I'm just throwing numbers out, if it's 10,000 traffic, the traffic counts are 10,000, you don't need one. If it's 10,001, you do. I mean, that's
Right.
really because they deal in those thresholds, so.
Let me know what, yeah, you just show up and turn them off.
Yeah, right. And what was the, so what kind,
Range a few
They're right.
accidents?
Yeah, Brandon?
what was the, in the last meeting you went to, what was the timeline between when they did the painting and then when you added the new traffic?
It's about
light?
6 months.
Oh, perfect.
perfect, okay.
That,
I was expecting like 3 years, I'm
No.
like, that's absurd, but.
yeah, no, I
You
mean,
know, life happens.
Sure,
And so
sure.
then, and it was it was actually doubly frustrating because it was a county road impacting this old 12 and M52 in Chelsea. So it was the county and the state. So their engineers talked to their engineers and it's like, hey, look, we need this. So
well, and I assume that we can also provide data because Chief will probably be able to provide to us if we have any issues at the intersection. Once this has been completed, because we're trying to do this as a better feature, we can take that information and send it to them saying, you know, it's still not quite right.
But having the 6 months would be helpful for when we're having, if I'm not willing to give it to us right off the bat, to say when we get those questions,
Yes.
listen, like other communities have had 6 months to a year of where they just needed the time to prove, like, we need this light. So that's a better answer than like 5 years, so.
Yeah, that's the big
Yes.
thing with the public comment.
Yeah. Steve?
What is the concern or the rationale for MDOT to say you can't have it? What's their concern?
they're not saying we can't, they're just saying that they use the term traffic warrants, and that's anything like the traffic counts and the interplay of traffic at a particular intersection, that there isn't a failure rate. So traffic gets graded like you're like in school, A through F, and you have to be D or E before you get a traffic signal, or you can change a intersection or add a stop sign or
Sure.
change a speed. So their viewpoint right now, given our current traffic counts, that it wouldn't be justified.
Yeah, they don't want to say.
But
The
I
amount of
agree-
people that turn left or right, I would say we need it.
This has been years in the making. We have put such a tremendous effort into this, so I know that we'll continue to move it forward and hopefully in a positive way, but thank you.
It's kind of following the steps.
Yep,
This is the next
absolutely.
step, and then what you guys are bringing up would be the next step.
Sure. Thank you.
And then finally, the Zimmer and Mechanic Lift Station project, that is scheduled to be going out for bids here very soon as well. The picture on the left is the Zimmer station, and that thing is really in bad shape. The picture on the right is a cross-sectional view of this platform that we have to put up around there, and then the electrical panels will be moved up there. And it's, it's not a huge project, but it's not cheap. I mean, moving electrical panels and conduits and having the steel framework put in, that costs in the tens of thousands. So that portion of the job's not cheap either. So we anticipate this being able to be completed. It's a different kind of contractor group that does this. You got electrical contractor, mechanical contractor, a little bit of site work, but different than our underground projects. This should be pretty seamless, and it shouldn't really impact, except just a very localized area down by the Zimmer Place condos, and I've had some communications over there with some of those folks and their HOA, and and then I've talked with the folks with Jubilee as far as scheduling and so forth, and impact around here, so none of this would impact Jubilee.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Scott.
That's it.
I'm gonna make the same comment that I made after John and Tom got done. If you have something that you would like to ask questions or further discussion, please reach out. Next is our road diet concept plans, but Scott, you've already said it's changed from the time that you received this.
Yeah,
Is
you
this
wanna
one in
flip the
packet?
lights,
So
or-
can you flip the lights first, Terry?
So in your council packet was the latest greatest, but then there was a couple pages right at the first part there that MDOT had some changes they
Okay.
wanted. Those have been made as
Alright.
of today.
Excellent,
So
great,
we're in good shape there.
great.
Towards the end of your pages in that packet are the ones on Putnam Street, and, there's a shift going on.
Sure. Sure, and it's so important, I mean, we're gonna do the best we can to educate, we really will, and that's key for our community, for our residents, and for our businesses, so we'll keep, moving that forward and doing our due diligence so we can get the project done. Moving along in our agenda, we did not receive any correspondence, we're gonna jump right into our department head reports, so John, I'll go ahead and just go right to you.
Thank you. It's going to be a busy spring and summer. The annual McCormick Park cleanup is this Saturday. I'm assuming the weather is good, so that's from 9 to 1. Hope to see everybody there. I'll be there. Should be a good time. for some reason it does rain, it's not supposed to. The rain date's the 20th, which would be the following Saturday. We have DDA meeting next week, where we're gonna, again, share the road diet plans, the updated ones, and then talk with DDA members about that. And then we expect to have a couple of site plans to review at the June planning commission meeting, and I'll update council more about that at our next meeting once that's finalized.
Great. Thank you so much. And I know that we have all three of you sitting over there, so Scott, you gave us a lot of, oh,
Please,
yeah,
James.
I'm sorry.
Just the 9 to 1 is, they're gonna be somewhere we go to get assigned as far as what.
We'll make sure we'll get you a full 5-hour shift. No, you're.
Yeah.
Folks are welcome,
Right, right.
folks are welcome to jump in anytime, you
Sure.
know, there should be a lot of hands to make the load light, but any amount of time folks can give would be awesome.
Yeah. Great, thank
And the
you.
Friends of Williamston Parks, they do a great job of getting that together.
They do, they really do. So, Scott, you gave us a ton of information. Is there anything that you would like to add as far as DPW wastewater treatment?
Grass is growing, it's getting hacked and whacked, there's some signs that you're gonna notice up over here. St. Mary's requested that we take a look at, the safety of the crosswalk, so we got some enhancements coming soon. There's a, hydrant that's getting replaced out there for the Jubilee. We've got some exciting stuff with the volunteers out at Volunteers Park, and some new equipment that's gonna be out there pretty soon. And they've also got a new entryway coming in too, so watch for all that good stuff.
Great, thank you so much. Tom, you went over a lot in finance and in ransomware, but is there anything else that you would like to add? Since I have you here. All right. Chief?
I will hold you in suspense till the next council meeting.
Oh my God. All right. Well, you know what, mark your calendars, folks, because I highly expect that, you know, you're gonna have something good to share, right?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
excellent. Well, thank you so much. We also did receive our Livingston County Building Department reports. It's springtime, so, you know, even though we saw a lot of activity over the winter, we'll probably see even more during this time period as we go into spring, summer. Committee reports. I will start down here with Dan. Nothing? Scott?
Oh, they canceled my meeting.
Okay, all right. Brandon? Steve? Terry?
Mine canceled as well. I think, when do we get reports on the Jubilee?
I was gonna do that in.
In his council member count? All right, well then I will, go ahead, Terry, council member comments?
No, just one, interest in the Jubilee.
Oh, shoot, I'm sorry, audience participation. Is there anybody out there would like to come forward for audience participation at this time? All right, Terry, council member comments. Anything you'd like to share?
Just interested in what's going on in the Jubilee, really.
All right, great. Steve?
Just thank John and the staff, always willing to provide information, meet, and I have to say that I'm thoroughly impressed with Scott, the several meetings that I've had. I can't believe that one individual has that much knowledge and information to share and always makes it clear to understand. Thank you, Scott.
Brandon?
I cede my time to Dan.
All right, Scott?
Just a quick comment on the beauty of McCormick Park. I'm not sure, I was running with a friend over the weekend, we were talking about how much it's improved since what it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
The plantings along the bank, I don't know if you remember how it used to be, but it is really a beautiful spot.
Thank you so much. Dan?
So we're about 6 weeks out from Jubilee. We had a Jubilee committee meeting last night. We finalized a contract for a mechanical bull for Friday night.
Yeah.
So that'll be cool. We've never had that before. It kind of fits our farming agriculture theme. That's going to be down there from 5 to 9 behind the tent. We're trying to get it moved out before the fireworks go off because the mechanical bull is literally in the center of a bounce house. So we figured with the fireworks going off around 10, they probably want that down for the ashes in the air. So we've got that. We're trying really hard with that ag theme to try and get as many tractors and garden tractors and things like that for the parade. I was contacting a group out of Oakley last week. The Old Gas Tractor Association, trying to get them to bring a bunch of tractors down. A few different things like that. We're finalizing the schedule hopefully this week so we can get it over to Don at Limner Press, and all those trifold pamphlets should be in businesses hopefully by the beginning of June. But keep an eye out on the Facebook page. That's where with the website's good. I've been lax on getting updates to our web developers, so the Facebook page is where the quickest stuff is at, but
Real quick question for you. When will you start taking nominations for Citizen of the Year and those awards? Because I know that
That's a
always
good
kicks
one.
off at the very beginning of Jubilee.
So, Citizen of the Year nomination, Citizen of the Year, real quick, that's for anybody that's a volunteer that affects our community in a great way. So, we've had a lot of different folks of the, 51 different folks. We've had, Ralph Shuck, longtime scoutmaster for Boy Scout Troop 63. We had last year, forgetting her name, Gwen Hulbert.
Yes.
Gwen Hulbert, longtime Kiwanian. So people that have a large history, you could be volunteering with your church, you could be volunteering at the school, any of our service organizations, the people that have had a long-term positive impact on the community. And we take those nominations year-round,
Okay.
and how that works is actually, if you submit a nomination this year and that person's not chosen, we'll automatically take it over to the
Oh,
next year.
great.
So they're still in the pot for the next year, you don't have to resubmit a letter.
All right.
But we would love some more submissions for this year. We have a few that have carried over from last year, but anyone that would like to submit for this year, when that gets voted on, the way that works is basically our service organizations, so the Kiwanans, Friends of Williamston Parks, all those different organizations, we either have a meeting or we send out the different letters that we've received, and we'll pick one person from each of those organizations, and they all get a vote. And then those people, whoever's chosen, we have the Citizen of the Year dinner Monday night of Jubilee, and all the different service organizations come together and they honor their members for that year, and then the last thing we do is we announce the Citizen of the Year.
Fantastic, thank you, I appreciate that, because I think those are very admirable honors that all the service organizations and Jubilee does, so I wanted to have you share that information. I'm just gonna say, it's springtime, get out there, enjoy Williamston, we have so many different things going on, and you know what? I think I'm just good with saying we're adjourned at 8:20. Good evening.